to the roundtable, le défi de la complémentarité public-privé au niveau local. Bonjour, je m'appelle Julia. J'apprends le français.
I'm Julia Schwitzer. I'm learning French, but I'm not yet fluent enough to moderate the topic in French.
If you want to listen in French, you can use the headphones in one, and also a lot of the speakers here will talk in French, so it'll be an international panel. Cybersecurity is a team sport, and sometimes the team is not always within your own organization, which leads us to partnership models that we will discuss today, specifically public-private partnerships. But there may be challenges, yeah? We don't always speak the same language. We might have cultural differences, maybe some bureaucratic hurdles we need to overcome. So today we have a great panel of experts that have a lot of experience in public-private partnerships and will be able to discuss challenges and solutions. And also, if you notice it, your cards, red, is a challenge. So if you're thinking about a challenge, later on you'll get an opportunity to discuss your specific channels and challenge and hear from our speakers. Public-private partnership in cybersecurity has a lot of different dimensions, and we'll hear about it. Can be partnerships for cybersecurity of local government. It can be to foster economic strength within your own ecosystem regionally. It can be cybersecurity for smaller companies. So we'll touch upon all those different panels, aspects of the topic. So let's get to our experts who will help us deal with those challenges. First, Jeroen Schipper, here on this side. He's the CISO of The Hague. He has more than 20 years of experience combining a unique skill set in informatics and also change management. He has a long track record working within the public sector, for example, in the Ministry of Defense, and then also now prominently, of course, in The Hague. And he will share about some very unique approaches that I'm excited about, hacking a local government. So thank you that you're here, Jeroen. Then I would like to introduce Florent Pourbarreau. She is the Directrice de Opération Campus Cyber Hauts-de-France. She's been a journalist for over 25 years, so bringing in even another perspective and expertise. She's been working on economic and technological issues, isn't very familiar with different topics on big data, AI, IT, and of course the French ecosystem. And she manages one of the first campus cyber in France, which was established 2 years ago. So we're very excited to hear about your work and what you're doing there, specifically also with startups. Then right next to me is Shahid Raza. He's the director of cybersecurity unit of RISE Sweden, a research institute of Sweden, and he's been leading a team of over 20 cybersecurity experts. He's also a professor, so bringing in even another kind of stakeholder community, and he co-founded the Cyber Campus in Sweden. So we'll be learning also about what is going on in Sweden, and especially also interesting the cyber ranch that you started there, and also how maybe public-private partnerships can then be a plus partnership with academia. So thanks for being here. Then we have here David Marti. So he brings in a very good perspective of being, of course, a mayor and also the president of De la Communauté Urbaine, which is an association for metropolis, urban communities, and larger cities in France. He's also part of the Safety and Prevention Commission of Urban France. And so he brings in a lot of perspective and experience in crisis management and how to collaborate on the ground, which he also proved in, for example, the COVID pandemic. So I think it's a very hands-on and good experience to have here as well. Thank you. Then Joris den Breunen, next to me here, is the General Director of Security Delta, and he's been involved in founding this initiative and is also part of the foundation and has a lot of experience in following, in general, trends in the digital security domain for a long time, and is very much like the intersection of digital security, policy strategy, organizational goals. So how, do you bring in together all these people and really have a proper good risk management and decision management approach. So I'm glad to have you. And last but not least, Mathieu Fillon. He's the head of operations of ANSSI and head of the CSIRT in France, has an engineering background. So again, another important expertise, and also is a professor or has a doctor in applied mathematics. And he will share with us more on what is ANSSI planning, what are the territorial CSIRTs about. So let's get us started with a very on-the-ground look with David Marty. So if you're thinking about the cybersecurity challenges that you see every day in local government, what are benefits of having a public-private partnership, and what are the challenges you are seeing that need to be addressed?
Ça marche le micro?
Thank you. On the question you've just asked on the benefits from a public-private partnership, I'd like to start by saying what you've said in your introduction already. When public and private work together, whatever the sector, it's a positive thing and it yields results. I'll give you a few examples. In the field of the economy, for example, on my territory around Le Creusot, we've shown that we've strengthened partnership between public and private with the public power, whether from the state or the territories. When we work with what makes the strength of the private sector in terms of financial investment, but also research, development, when we combine all this, we get very good results. We can also talk about higher education, for example. When public and private work hand in hand in terms of private education, we get results. We talk about proximity policies, waste management in a given territory, water management, transports. There are synergies that can be generated very profitably between private and public. Of course, there are always bad examples, but they're few and far between. And in terms of security and cybersecurity, we have everything to gain from working together. And this is what we say within France Urbaine, Urban France, my association. First, because public in general, and particularly local communities, are lagging behind in terms of cybersecurity, particularly in France. I don't know whether it's the same in every country, but in France, local territories, cities, towns are lagging behind, but they're now really working on it. The private sector really looked at cybersecurity a long time ago. So the private sector has long experience that we should benefit from. So if we mix the experience of the private sector and the expertise that the public sector has, I'm not talking about the territory level, but at the national level, for example, the expertise of the gendarmerie in terms of cybersecurity is very interesting. And they are very much on the forefront because they looked at it very early on. You know, gendarmes are militaries, and when militaries look into a topic, they look at it in depth. So at the national level today, we have the gendarmerie that works very efficiently in matters of cybersecurity. And this has to be associated with the private sector. What we see today is very specific. There's shared will between public and private sector to work together, but we still have to do away with a number of obstacles. Let me explain that. There are still a number of private companies that are being attacked from a cybersecurity point of view, and they don't say that, and they will pay ransoms. It's not the case in the public world. A public institution automatically talks about an attack, goes public. And when I say public, I mean, of course, local government. We recently saw that data were stolen from France Travail. It was immediately made public. It's true for attacks on hospitals. So we need to have synergy also in terms of communication between private and public, so that those that are attacking don't think that there's a breach of communication between private and public. So it is in our interest to work together, which is why within France Urbaine, we've made suggestions to work together on all those topics, to use cybersecurity efficiently, and to have a common platform, to establish at one point in time a common platform, a number, a green line, you know, a call line that we could call and say, I have been under attack, and immediately a reaction would be launched. We would also need to have a response center. We need a strengthened response center. We know that the ANSSI, for example, plays a seminal role in teaching, raising awareness, in training, including training people who work for local authorities. I see that in many towns and cities, the ANSSI, the French agency, has been an important resource. So we are better protected today. We are part of protocols. We train our agents, we train our employees to cyber attacks and to the prevention. How can you do detection? Detect an attack before it is full-blown. So today, mayors of towns and cities are asking for more cybersecurity, and they want to play a role in this ongoing process. If I give you a figure, for example, today we have 77% of groups of cities and towns which use protective means in terms of cybersecurity, but it means that 33%, rather small cities or villages, are not equipped or don't feel that it is a topic that they should be worried about. So we have to raise awareness in local authorities. If I give you another example that we will very soon be faced with, when it comes to using AI, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity goes two ways. First, how do we use cybersecurity to protect ourselves? The second point is, how do we fight attacks? We have to work on both those pillars. The first one, which is how to use efficiently AI, cybersecurity to self-protect. Very soon we'll have the Olympic Games in France, in Paris, this summer. It's a hot topic in terms of cybersecurity. How can we protect ourselves? It's true for Paris, but not only for Paris. There will be other cities welcoming competitions. Some cities will welcome teams of athletes. It's the case in my city. We will welcome teams of athletes, and hence we have to put in place a whole security protocol, conventional security, obviously, but also facial recognition, for example, the use of algorithm. And this has really stirred a debate here in France between the territories, the politicians, where does security stop, where does freedom end, etc., etc. This is a debate we are fully into. There have been experiments rather promising with the help of the prefects. And we are slowly, with the green light from a number of associations like France Urbaine, we're saying we have to go ahead with facial recognition, we have to go ahead with algorithms so as to increase security on Olympic sites. The second pillar is prevention against attacks. How do we defend ourselves better? And this is where we have to be more performant than today. We lack expertise, we lack proper advice. I have to say, to be honest, we see a market developing, a whole wild market, and very often local representatives are lost. Is it a commercial approach, or is it someone that generally wants to protect the common good, the public good? And really, local representatives need an outside perspective. They need to be able to trust, saying, yes, this is a proposal I can trust. No, this is purely commercial, and I won't get what I want from it. And this is where the ANSSI really has a role to play in terms of advice and counsel to local representatives. This is what I'd like to say by way of introduction. I'd rather answer questions, because you've touched upon a topic that is not cybersecurity per se, but is security in general. You've talked about the reaction that mayors have when they're faced with an emergency in terms of security. We were faced with that not very long ago with the riots, with the COVID crisis. How do mayors manage this type of crisis situation where they're very often alone to manage? That's another topic that I could talk about, but maybe I'll stop here for a start.
Yes, thanks so much. I think this was super all-encompassing and great to pick up later on, especially with you on the role of what should be done centrally, what should be done locally. One thing you also mentioned was the obstacle of really close partnerships. If you are hiring to do your cybersecurity by private sector and you're in local government, how do you then deal with, making sure that they are also dealing with their own security, so you're not affected by it? And I think this is a good lead to Jeroen Schipper to talk about hacking The Hague and what practical solution you found for The Hague. So
thank you. Yeah, it's another part of the public-private partnership, Hack The Hague. Yeah. Let me give some background info first. The city of The Hague is comparable between Lyon and Marseille, with 600,000 inhabitants, and our organization is about 12,000 people. So we have a lot of information that we have to protect. And in 2016, there was a national uproar because of a large document that was released, a report stating that there was a lot of attacks from hackers and that they could get to the information quite easily. So in our city council, there was a discussion about that. And one of the council members said, if the hackers, if the ethical hackers can get to the information, why don't we ask them how they do it so we can learn from them? So it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment, but the vice mayor responsible for IT and security said, okay, let's do that. So in 2017, we had the first Hack The Hague event where we invited 40 hackers, 4-0, and they found a couple of vulnerabilities. And last year we did the 5th edition with 120 hackers during the day. It's in City Hall. The Hague is a pretty big, wide hall as a City Hall where people just come to get their passports, for instance. And then in the middle we have a lot of tables, 120 tables with 120 hackers in hoodies and headphones. And the interesting part is that they try to hack into our live systems. So it's the production systems that we have, but also, and that's what the public-private partnership comes to, also of our IT vendors. So that's an interesting thing we do now every year, so for the 5th time last year. And in the total for the last 5 editions we had about 400 hackers joining us, and they found about 300 vulnerabilities, and a couple of them were quite high impact. Also a couple of international ones with providers from Asia, for instance. So what we do is the public-private partnership is threefold. First, we invite professional hackers, but we also invite student hackers. So we have a couple of universities in the region, and we invite them to join us. So about, from the 120 hackers, we invite about 40 student hackers, and they all held competitions beforehand to qualify to be able to join Hack the Hague, because we have a lot of prize money, or you can win prizes from 2,000 to 3,000 euros in 4 categories. So it's a pretty nice bonus. We have nice goodie bags with hoodies, and you mentioned it. So that's interesting. The example I mentioned from the international vulnerability that was found, that's one part of the public-private partnership, because then we alert our CSIRT for the municipalities, but also the NCSC, the Dutch NCSC, and in this case they connected to CSIRT Japan, which went to the supplier of, in this case, a couple of printers. We had a pretty high vulnerability, and that was fixed in 3 days. So that's one of the big successes of Hack the Hague. But the other part, and that's something you don't hear quite often, is that we also inserted a clause in all contracts of our suppliers, our IT suppliers, that when they work for the municipality of The Hague, then they also have to compete with Hack the Hague. So that's one of the things that we almost force the suppliers to. It sounds a bit harsh, but it's part of our awareness program for people working for the municipality, but also for our suppliers, that you can use, and maybe use is a bad word for this, but you can use the hacker community to raise your digital awareness, but also your digital resilience. So that's really important for us. The Hague, maybe some of you know, is the international city of peace and justice, and security and digital security is really important to be able to do that. So it's really part of our DNA, and we need all the help we can get. We get expertise for hackers, of course, and the whole goal of Hack the Hague, and then I will finish my talk, is that we make ourselves vulnerable to become less vulnerable. But we also want to share that information. So as Mayor Marti mentioned just now, we are a pretty big municipality, but we always go to the smaller ones around us in the region and let them join us and learn together from that.
Thank you. Maybe just one follow-up question. Since we talked about, before was mentioned that building the trust to do something so specific and vulnerable, right, for you, but also for the private sector, people that are participating, because they're being hacked by then again another third party. How did you create this trust? Did you start small, or what was your approach there to really get to the point now where this is a really effective vulnerability finding system?
I understand the question. Well, first of all, you have to, as a CISO, you have to have a really good story, in this case to the mayor or the vice mayor, but it's also some sort of risk involved. You just have to try it, and to get a bit more detail, we're talking about all the systems of the municipality. So about our IP range is a /20 for the technical people here, /20 IP range. So everything we have, and of those of our suppliers, is part of the scope of Hack the Hague. So it's really a big risk, but it's already internet facing. So hackers can go to it every time on a Saturday night. So let's do it on a Monday morning and afternoon, and then we can see them. We, of course, log everything. We can see if somebody tries to break in using a brute force attack, which is not recommended because there are live systems. So we really have to have a good story. And we get a lot of requests for information, like how do you prepare? Well, we prepare for 10 months every year, but we got a lot of information together. It's free on hackthehague.com. It's an e-guide, how to hack a city. This is not the e-guide, it's a physical guide. But there's all the information that we have about what you do. First, you have to have a responsible disclosure program, a coordinated vulnerability disclosure, how you have to work between the security departments, but also the IT departments. What do you do if you have a high impact vulnerability? You already have to have in place. And then you can start thinking about inviting hackers.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's really helpful, especially if there's any mayors or representatives here. You can maybe talk later if you would be open to doing something like this in your region. So I'll move now countries. From the Netherlands, we go to Sweden. So Shahid, what are the working solutions in Sweden right now, where you see public-private partnership is very, very beneficial for both at the same time?
Thank you, Julia. So Sweden, it's a bit different country in this way that we are maybe number one and number two most digitalized country. So many, or if not all, functions of main operators of a country are online, from tax systems to accessing banks to municipalities and so on. We have something called Bank ID, and we use it to log into everything. So one of the problems with, or we need to understand that for decades and centuries, the functions of the cities were not digitalized. This means that they were not a software company, but now they are a software company because they acquired software, they use it, there's an end of life, someone needs to update. But this mentality is not there yet, because if they have to collect garbage, yes, this is their function, but now they acquire 10 companies maybe to do this. Back in 2000, I think 19, 18, before that, Sweden was quite naive. There was almost nothing happening when it comes to really cybersecurity on the national level than in some specific agencies. So there was a famous attack. We have a service called 11.se or 1177. It's a health service. When when you're sick, you call them and they reply. And there was an hack on this, attack on this, and then they traced back, and from the city to the actual place where data was stored, there were 5 operators involved. And the actual company that was handling the data, that was in Thailand. So many Swedish people love to spend their vacations in Thailand. I don't know why this ended up being in Thailand. But then, and it was really clean data, clear text of very sensitive health data there. This attack and some other things has really changed the mindset in Sweden, and this debate started. You can't be the most digitalized country and then you're number 40 or something in cybersecurity. Sweden was very trust-based society. Our personal numbers and so on, they're all online. You can access them very easily. So back in 2019, there was a real debate started that we need to do something, and there should be some serious investment in cybersecurity. The outcome was a couple of things early on. So first was National Cybersecurity Center, whose aim was quite broad initially, meaning that they need to, different agencies need to talk to each other, but at the same time, they need to take care of the industry and the public sector as well and so on. But unfortunately, it didn't happen the way we wanted, because there was already quite quite a bureaucracy and at the same time difficulty in just talking between different agencies. You know, national CERT is the responsibility of one agency, national defense is Swedish Armed Forces, the procurement is radio agency and so on. So they ended up talking to each other for 3-4 years, how to actually they can share data and so on. Meanwhile, the innovation, that's a bit, you know, I think agile to work. So Swedish Innovation Agency, they woke up and say, oh, we should have something for industry immediately. So they established something called CyberNode. So I represent RISE, which is a state-owned company. We do research for the state and also for companies and sometimes for public. So RISE Research Institutes of Sweden is a rather new concept. We are a mix of 35 companies who were there for ages. But the government put together everything from, I mean, some of them were private companies, so they bought them and put them together. And now we have 3,000 people working on different aspects, and cyber is one of them. So coming back, we were asked to establish something called CyberNode. And today we are 200 plus members. If a French, I think, company operating in Sweden in cyberspace, they should be, and I'm sure they are already a member of this CyberNode. But the idea behind CyberNode was a quick fix. Okay, let's provide at least a forum where companies can, you know, talk to each other and share their expertise. So, sorry, when I say companies, it's also public sector, and then the academia was also present. But it was more of a coordination action. You know, it's a place to go where you discuss cybersecurity, but there was not really resources in the node to deliver as well. So then Swedish Armed Forces, RISE, and we have a university, KTH. We were lobbying and we say, oh, we should have a place where we can actually do research, do education, and also the innovation that leads to, that's an output from these initiatives. So we established something called Cyber Campus Sweden. We lobbied for it for 2 years, that who should fund it, because some were pointing to education ministry, others to defense, and then to innovation. So finally, it ended up in a very good shape in a way that now is funded by 3 ministries, Ministry of Innovation Agency, Vinnova we have, and then we have this Swedish Armed Forces, the Ministry of Defense, and Ministry of Education. So they 3 are funding this initiative that we inaugurated actually in February this year. I would say it's just going in a very good direction now with these. Now we have a physical place in Stockholm that we can point to. Here is a cyber campus. We just started, so there's lots of hiring today, and all sorts of management functions, and 10 PhD students, and these kind of things are there. So I think the situation is improving. But if you look at it again, and from the individual municipality point of view, we are still living in dark ages of. The cyber was completely ignored in many cases when they were going to digitalize many functions in the municipalities and also on the government level. It's improving, but it's not in really good shape today. And it's very dangerous when you have really the whole society can use digital services. It's one of the most digitalized countries in the world. So that's add to the problem quite significantly.
Yes, thank you. I think this gives us all a bit of an overview of okay, every country's situation is different, and the architecture and the political commitment plays quite a big role in what can we make work. So I think that's a really good hint towards France initiative of the Cyber Campus, because here, as I understood, you had central political commitment, and now you're implementing. So Florence, please tell us a bit more about your work with startups regionally, and how do local governments benefit from this?
Oui, alors donc, moi je...
Yes, I represent the Campus Cyber Hauts-de-France Métropole. We've got an action covering the whole Hauts-de-France region. We are representative of this complementarity between public and private sectors for the campus Cyber National. Some of you might know it. It's in Paris and created in February 2022, a place with public and private stakeholders, with public and private fundings. In the regions now, we have the Campus Cyber Hauts-de-France. We have Metropolis and regional funds, but we also work with the private and public sector, both. These campuses are not university campuses. They are places to help people gather. We're one federator of the cyber activity. We've got members joining the campus to whom we offer services for visibility and meetings facility. We've got a startup incubator. We get innovation in the cybersecurity sector, incubating, promoting, and we go from the project to the Lacon. I mean, we would need to have something happening like that. So we've got a role on innovation that's public funds to support private companies. We work with the research labs, CNRS and RIA and so on. We have an ecosystem in the Hauts-de-France in terms of cybersecurity. So we were talking about the problem of collectivities which are not protected well enough. I mean, we've got the Center of Response to Incidents. I mean, if you are attacked, I mean, you call on them, and we've got a right mixture there for private and public collaboration. We offer you, whether you're an SME or a local authority, we've got this center response to incident. We've got the police, with the gendarmerie, and see with the regional delegate. We work all together to increase the awareness and help local authorities and the private sector to improve their situation. I mean, we are very at a very early age. I mean, we are going to have our first anniversary soon. There's a lot to be built together, but there's a strong determination from public representatives. In the Hauts-de-France, we're fortunate because our representatives from the city, the region, are very involved in cybersecurity. I mean, there's been a big event. Lille got attacked, a very harsh attack. So the ANSI might confirm that, and they've been really impacted heavily, and that means that led to awareness raising, that led to an electroshock. Unfortunately, you've got to get to this point for the electroshock to happen, and I think that as far as elected representatives at the level of Lille Metropolis, that's true. I mean, in the smaller entities, smaller cities and smaller SMEs, I mean, we still got more work to do. We join forces together, we meet together, and that's how we're going to go forward.
Thank you. I think this is a really good point for you, because you deal with attacks all the time. So now we heard there is already different initiatives, response center and so on. So maybe I think it would be helpful to explain ANSI's role, the territorial CSIRTs, and if you could use an example, like if I am now a city in France, who would be involved and what are the different roles that would come and help me in my situation?
Merci. Alors, peut-être expliquer.
Well, maybe explaining the ecosystem of CSIRT at regional level. I mean, the progression of threats. I mean, historically, we had the state spying background with the major players covered by ANSI in the legal sense of the word. And then we had a small level criminality with very small particular specific people with phishing, with spamming, and we have cybermalveillance.gov to treat that. And in 2019, we had the big Yemen team with ransomware striking full entities, and we saw players like large SMEs, intermediate size company, and a lot of territorial authorities like hospitals, for instance, being impacted. A hospital infected by ransomware impacts the life of the patients, and that means that the cemeteries, for instance, couldn't be managed anymore, so it has a direct impact on society. In 2021, after COVID, there was a recovery plan in France. ANSI benefited from a budget to enhance cybersecurity, and we took this advantage to get new offers to emerge to support all those people when there was an incident. We wanted to include the regions. France is subdivided administratively into regions with different competence, but an economic one for one, and being the player of the economic development. And it was important for us to enroll them and to create a regional center of response to incidents, to provide them with support when they need to have a support, and the coordination of providers. So we have a three-player public-private, the state, the local authorities, and providers of services who will provide a part of the answer. First advice, guidance, guiding people towards some public sectors to file a complaint, to deal with the GRPD, but they will be also offered a list of providers, service providers, able to help them. So they're going to provide local providers, and they're going to play an action in the economic development of some elements of cybersecurity, helping to the creation and emergence and knowledge of all the small solution providers, relating them to deeply anchored smaller providers. So the CSIRT regional one are supported by campuses like here in the Hauts-de-France. They're going to be linked to campus to be part of this economic development for the cybersecurity in the region, and that's a very important element. So they're going to bring this element, this type of elements, and also play a key role in prevention, and they will also be able to bring other things like warning system towards their audiences. So all the services provided by a CSIRT, if a collectivity has a problem, one of the objectives we have as ANSI, we coordinate the CSIRT network. Depending on their size, I mean, a different CSIRT might deal with them, but no matter, they're going to be guided in the smoother possible way to the right player. When it's a size of Lille, it's the ANSI directly, but if it's a smaller community, then it's going to be a smaller size CSIRT, but they're going to be guided to talk to the right player, to the right stakeholder.
I think this is also I say because I'm from Germany, something maybe Germany can look at, because we also have a lot of regions and everyone right now does a little bit their own thing. So I find this very inspiring. Thank you. So now we talked a lot about how can the local government benefit, from the private sector, and I now want to move to how, what can the region do for the companies and the economic growth and so on. So I think you're the best one to look at this, Euros.
Oh, thank you. Let me, before I go into the answer of the question, let me explain you a little bit and give you some perspective of what I represent and how we do it in the Netherlands. I'm director of a foundation that organized and orchestrates the Dutch ecosystem in digital security. We have about 300 partners, and they're from what we call the triple helix, so it's business, government agencies, and knowledge institutes. What we try to orchestrate is the collaboration on content stuff, things mentioned already in the panel, but also collectively innovate. And we do this the right way. We come into the direction of the double aim of my organization. That's on the one hand, collaborate and innovate to make sure that the digitalized society of the Netherlands is more secured towards the future. And as a spin-off, have economic value and growth of jobs. So that's the double aim. How did it start? It started in The Hague. Jeroen mentioned International City of Peace and Justice. We added security to it. By trends, already 10 years, 15 years ago, we understood that if it comes to digital security, we need to collaborate. That it's not in the hands of the government on its own, so they needed to collaborate public-privately. This DNA of the city, combined with the DNA of the Netherlands, the secure digital gateway to Europe, makes a combination where we can collectively collaborate on the double aim. Then what do we provide to businesses? We provide access to knowledge as the base of innovation. Try to set up consortia, not only businesses that are providing solutions or innovate on solutions, new products, but also with end users. Could be government, could be bigger organization, businesses as well. Then we provide access to finance to fund those innovation projects. We provide access to capital, because if we talk about growth of companies, those who are able and willing to grow fast and need venture capital for growth, we bridge between funds and venture capitalists and those startups and scale-ups that are able to grow. If we talk about innovation and growth, we also talk about talent, because it's not organization in the end, it's people that do this stuff. So we bridge here between the educational institutes and the labor market. And the last thing that we provide access to market. And in the Netherlands, this is pre-competitively. So in the innovation projects or in the alignment and knowledge sharing. But as the Dutch, we go abroad, as we do those days here at Inform in Lille. We have a Dutch pavilion where Dutch businesses and the Dutch government are representative and go collectively to the international market. So this access to provides actually the benefits and the value for the businesses, because it's easier to find organizations, and could be business or government, to collaborate with. It's easier to understand each other and talk to each other's language, because that's really important lessons learned over the 10 years. People from government and business speak many times different language, so we are a translator, not in French, English, but between those two parts. And it's trying to bring all the values at stake In the Netherlands, we say we make the cookie bigger to have a bigger pie, and everyone has a bigger piece of the pie that is at stake. And well, that's helpful for the businesses as well. So that's part of the background. And what we try to do is bridge and align the local perspective, so the city of The Hague, not Jeroen's perspective content-wise, but the perspective from economic point of view, but also on the national level, because the national government understands that in this field of cybersecurity, there's collaboration needed. So we bridge between those two.
Awesome, thank you. I think, Jeroen, you were also mentioning this in our pre-talk, like in the end, it's about the nitty-gritty daily work with public-private partnerships that is the hardest. So we have now around 20 minutes left, and I want to try something with you guys to hear a bit more about your challenges, your solutions. Maybe you've been working with local government, maybe you're trying to work with local government, maybe you are from a region, so we have, on the one hand, a challenge card, and on the one hand, a solution card. So what I'm asking you to do, and if you don't have a card, you say white. White is the solution. My right hand, left hand is my challenge. You take a moment for yourself, think about, have I had a really good solution? Yeah, either maybe when working with a local government or kind of collaborating in a public-private partnership that I really liked, or do I have a challenge right now because maybe I don't speak the right language? And then go and turn to the right or left and talk to your neighbor, just quickly that you guys get to know each other, and talk about either a solution that you find exciting that you want to share, or a challenge that you're sitting with. And I'm giving like 5 minutes for this now. So please, go ahead. Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah, already. I have it done. Yes, but it's okay. I think we talked about it.
We also have Monday before the one. We also get international hackers test.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. So what we would like to now hear from you, if you've had a challenge that you now want to share with all of us so we can discuss and we can get some responses from our panelists here, please raise your hand with the challenge card, and let's talk about it together. Who had an interesting challenge that they would like to share? A good solution that you found interesting, or a solution that we discussed about that you would like to hear a bit more? All right. Well, we're going to continue then. If you guys come up with something, just raise your hand. We'll give you the microphone and take your responses. All right. Well, we're going to dive then a bit more deep into a challenge that all of the EU is now facing, which is NIS2. And the EU level, that's a directive kind of saying, okay, we should actually have more cybersecurity on all levels, and it's going to include a lot more stakeholders. For local government, however, the EU said it's recommended to do these measures, but it's not mandatory. So this kind of gives us now the challenge, like, are we, moving towards NIS2 implementation on the local level as well, or are we going to stay below that level? So I would like to pose, this question to you. What's the process in France looking like when it comes to NIS2 implementation, and how is it going to affect the local level? Are you including the local level in NIS2 implementation, or you taking a different route?
Alors, deux éléments de réponse. D'abord, du point de vue des...
Well, an answer in two ways. First, regulated entities by NIS2. Today, the ANSI with NIS1 and other national mechanisms, we have about 100 regulated operators. With NIS2, we have an approximation of 15,000 regulated operators. So, of course, much smaller entities will be involved with a local footprint rather than the 100 now, which are mainly major entities with a local, with a national coverage. The second point is that today we have an agreement relationship with the regulated partners. It's okay with 100, it's no longer possible with 15,000. There are even a number of them that will take some time to realize that directive NIS2 applies to them. So we will need a number of relays to help those people along the way. And on a more operational level, we would like to be able to have the notion of relay CSIRT, those local entities, because we will need representatives in the different territories and in the different sectors, because some sectors of our industry will be more regulated than others. So we need those proximity players, proximity actors that will help entities understand the directive, the compliance, incident declarations, and we rely on them to communicate. If we have alert to pass on, we really need to have a relay ecosystem that will help us get in touch with some entities that are very small and that we may find difficult to get in touch with. So that's the whole raison d'etre of having those local actors, because they know the ground much better than we will ever from our big ivory tower in Paris. So we really need a support network, and this is something that we're really trying to put in place. And if there are some networks of CSIRT that were created by Directive NIS1, strengthened by NIS2, the CSIRT network with CSIRT from all European Union members, the ANSI represents France. This network of agencies allows the sharing of information, and we will, in France, have a number of relays. It's another example of private-public partnership. We've created an association called Intercept France, a non-for-profit association bringing together more than 100 CSIRTs in France, the police, the gendarmerie, big companies that will bring public skills. We will have main private companies in the field of cybersecurity, but also local, regional CSIRTs. So we see how powerful it is to have a full public-private network so that we can really make operational NIS2, the directive, by making it well known by people who may not realize that they fall upon NIS2. So we really rely on those relay and proximity actors because not everybody is used to cybersecurity. So we need to speak a language that people will understand. And we really see the advantage of having local players that we will rely on.
I really agree. We see part of the same in the Netherlands. Of course, NIS2, in the beginning, it's individual companies and organizations that are responsible, but they're also more and more responsible for their change. On national level, it's easily written down in policies to have the local and regional system into place. But we work, and that's the example I would like to give to the audience as well. We work on change within certain sectors that are relevant in the region where we have our core footprint. So in the region of the Hague, Rotterdam area, the horticulture is a really big part. It's not critical at national level under NIS1. So on the NIS2, we try to help them. What we did is we did set up a cyber resilience center. This is with support of the Ministry of Economic Affairs Digital Trust Center, who says we need this national coverage system. And a really important thing in this Cyber Resilience Center is that we, as the Security Delta, with all the organization in digital security, collaborate with a network that is the network of the horticulture organizations. So that's one, because the companies, if I come up or my people come up to them, they say, yeah, of course you talk about cybersecurity because that's your core business. And now I say, no, it's your organization that you're a member of, the horticulture network, that's saying it's really important to collaborate. So that's one. Second really important thing is, and it's already mentioned, the mayor mentioned it, but also Jeroen, it's big helping small. So what we do with the bigger and more matured organization within horticulture, we collaborate at the first start, and we were able to grow this center in 1 year from 8 bigger organizations within horticulture towards 100 other organizations, and therefore we make sure that we bring the whole sector at a higher level of cyber resilience maturity. And this is one example, but now we roll it out in the region. So we also going to do this with the manufacturing industry in the south of the southwest of the Netherlands, and also with life science and health. And last thing we do, because we started with support of the Digital Trust Center, which is part of Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands, but we align with the National Cybersecurity Center, and bridge between local, regional, and national, and also share public-privately all the threat intel that it's available and make it vice versa way. So we really help each other, big helping small, but also government with their knowledge, helping the businesses to mature, that in the end, they're responsible for themselves.
Thank you. Then Florence and then Monsieur Mati.
Yes, I just wanted to confirm what Mathieu said earlier. Of course, we have the CSIRT that will be used as a relay for NIS2, but the campuses as well. We get a lot of requests. People come and see us, particularly SMEs. They've heard about NIS2 and they want to know what will happen to them. I've had many questions here at the forum. We tell them that things are in progress. We've already organized meetings with the local representative of ANSSI. We will have a lot of work on our plate because NIS2 will also force local authorities, some companies, even SMEs. We're talking about companies with 50 staff, 10 million euros turnover. So they will have to come up to scratch. So we all have a role to play, private and public, We as a campus, the CSIRT, will have a role to play, the whole ecosystem. We have a lot of service providers in the Hauts-de-France, more than 130 working in cybersecurity, working for companies. They also have to get on board. Some will have to comply to NIS2. So I think that Directive NIS2, it's not going to be easy. I think we can all agree on that. It may be painful for some, but at the end of the day, it'll be a wake-up call, a very welcome wake-up call, just like GRDP taught us what privacy is all about. Not to do anything with our private information, to talk about leaks. And I think NIS2 will have the same good effect on the security of companies and local government. Monsieur Marty? Thank you. Yes, to come back to talk about NIS2, to really support what my co-speakers have just said. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, should such a subject be dealt with at the level of the European Union? Yes, of course. But we need to be convinced of that. Very often we ask a question and we have no answer. Here, the answer is obvious. Why? Because when we look at the past few years, without going too far back in the past, and several of you have talked about a wake-up call. Every time there's a major crisis, Europe has to deal with it. And that's a good thing, because what is at the core of all that? National sovereignty, European sovereignty, democratic sovereignty. When we touch upon these values, very often we realize that we have to work at the European level. It's not possible at any other level. So NIS1 and then NIS2, it's following a crisis. We had a financial crisis in 2008, then economic crisis, 2009, 10, 11, then the sanitary crisis with COVID, and now these attacks, which have questioned national defense. We've seen that we could be under all sorts of attacks. So now this is dealt with at the level of Europe. NIS1, NIS2, a good thing. The true question is, how will that be implemented in the different countries and in the different territories? Which is why, within my association, France Urbaine, we really want to be fully integrated with MPs. This is how it works in France. We have a European directive, and then this European directive has to be transposed by the French Parliament. And we've really asked to be present on the different discussions so that the implementation is really aligned with the reality on the ground. And we also need the directive to be understood. If you want a directive to be understood by the population, by the inhabitants, you have to translate the European to the inhabitant, even if Europe is making an effort, honestly, to get close to inhabitants, to teach, to explain. At the end of the day, it is for local government at different levels, but local government, local representatives, democratically elected, that have to do this exercise of convincing and explaining NIS2 to the inhabitants. Because what can be painful, as you said, it's always painful when you have to implement a European directive, to make it the least painful, to make sure that people understand, that inhabitants in our departments understand that it is for their good. We have to be fully integrated in the transposition work, because again, it's a question of sovereignty, European and national sovereignty. How can you imagine a country in Europe with compromised sovereignty having no effect on other European countries? This is not possible. We see that every day.
I think it's a very important Because the local level might not be as represented on the EU level sometimes, because maybe then the local level would have been very much more included in the NIS2. I will do Jeroen and then Shahid, just your, last remarks, maybe
short.
challenges you work on, and then we'll close.
Well, it looked like Major Marti read my mind, because not only NIS2, but cybersecurity as a whole is a European issue. And I'm glad that we seem to agree that it is, and that's the only way we can win this cyber war. So I don't mean cooperating on a local level or regional or national, but on a European level. And there's so much interesting expertise. Just look downstairs, all the French companies. Why wouldn't I, as a CISO of a Dutch municipality, use one of the products below? Because it isn't available in the Netherlands. So I know sovereignty is a big issue for every country, but I think we have to ignore borders in this case and just work together and have a public partnership, a public-private partnership to win this cyber war.
So I will just add to the problem by saying that for many years we were fighting that when you talk to municipalities and public sector, we speak different languages. There's an IT guy that they hired 15 years ago. That's the guy there, and then there are security guys. So then and they see cybersecurity as a cost. So they were not serious for many years. And now these directives coming, CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act, and NIS2 are two, I think, primary directives. And suddenly they need to do something. And but the biggest challenge is, if you see, like I heard 15,000 in France and 3,000 in Sweden, you need 3,000 multiplied by at least 2-3 people in each company. And where are these people who will implement Cyber Resilience Act and NIS2? These people don't exist today, honestly. The skill set I meant, the cybersecurity skill set, there's a huge gap. It's so hard to hire even in companies like us who want to pay, double. But these people don't exist. And when you go to municipalities, their salaries and everything is very regulated. So it's very hard to get these people. So I think the campuses and also on the university side and some other regulations to make sure that we produce the same number of people that we need to implement these directives. Otherwise, nothing will happen, honestly, because the IT guy will implement NIS2 then in a company, and it's a very different skill set we are talking about here.
Thank you. I think this leaves us with a good challenge to discuss afterwards. Thanks for being so open, to sharing your country's perspective, your solutions, and I think we covered a lot of ground, and I'm happy to continue the conversation below, maybe over some beer or wine from France. So thanks.
Thank you.